He is a man of words, he's a man of poetry, and he's getting the world switching on to poetry at the moment. And I say that advisedly through his poetry project. It's great to get an update on how things go, because James McInerney is back in the studio with me. Do you ever get any chance to do anything other than poetry for the masses? This started on the London Underground, and it's spread across the world now.
Yeah, I mean, we did start literally almost come to a year now, and the amount of things I've done in a year with this. We started on the Underground, we went to kind of train stations, airports, across shopping centres in the UK. It's kind of gone from there. We're now in parks, universities, schools.
What kind of poetry is it that you write for the masses in the way that you do, so that people in a split second can take in a few lines, just a few lines of what you've written, and it sets them up for the day or the night or whatever?
Yeah, well, it's in a world where there's kind of a lot of negativity. You know, Brexit's happening. There's a lot of bad things going kind of about. It's nice to see in places you wouldn't normally see it, positivity, motivational kind of words, empowering words of kind of well-being, to kind of raise issues of mental health awareness as well, because we don't realise how these things affect us daily, and to see something positive, it makes a difference.
At the risk of sounding cynical, why do you do this? Because you don't make any money out of it, do you?
No, I don't. It's just to get I make money out of my books, so obviously the books sell, and that's an income for me as a writer.
Do you have time to write whilst you're doing all of this?
It's kind of squeezing it in. It's kind of took over my life, this, and this is about getting it out there and making a difference, because I think we need to see more of these things, and I've kind of seen that as I've gone throughout the year with this, that people message me, I needed to see this, you know, and there is not to say a market, but it's not a market as such, it's kind of people wanting to have these messages.
So there isn't a James McInerney super yacht unless there's an awful lot of books that are going to get sold soon.
Yeah, well, I just see it as doing a good thing. You know, I started this as a small side project, didn't think it would take off, wasn't sure how the public would kind of embrace it, and it went really well.
Have you created a monster? Is it now driving you rather than you driving it?
It is. It's gone from strength to strength. And say we haven't even reached a year yet, and the things I've got set up for next year are like double what's happened this year, and we're talking on big scales. So next year is going to be pretty crazy, and which is kind of why I released my book 2 months early, because I know what I've got kind of coming up for the rest of this year is going to be manic. So I've kind of released it already, and it's out, book 5, knowing that I've got busy till Christmas, and then after that it's just manic for 2020.
Do you think that the poetry project, by linking your name to the poetry books, I mean, is there a spin-off that comes out of having the public poetry and then people saying, actually, I'd quite like to get James's poetry in a proper book?
Yeah, I mean, I have had kind of a lot of new fans from it that have kind of seen the project, seen my kind of Twitter, Instagram handle, and so who's that, you know, as you do, and kind of read my work and thought, I love this, and then kind of bought my book, and then actually, yeah.
Find out a bit more about you.
Find out more me, seeing what I've done in the media, kind of who I've worked with, the actors and actresses and everything. And it's just I've got so much out there.
But how do you keep the poetry fresh? I mean, if every day you've got to provide something, or every week you've got to provide something, that's quite a treadmill you're on for a creative person.
It is, after 5 books and over almost 600 poems.
Good Lord.
It's trying to think of something new, and I suppose writing has slowed down a bit because you think, well, I've kind of covered that, you know, and it is hard. You just basically life, really, I suppose. I just experience things, and I think of
and things perhaps that we report in the media, or things that you read in the newspapers. Is that the hunting ground for new material?
Yeah, it is, because it's so emotive, isn't it? In the news, things are happening that people are so passionate about, and it kind of drives that kind of thing as you as an individual, as you think, well, yes, I want to write about that, or I want to.
So what's sprung out of the papers for you today for the immediate present, and what might turn up into a bit of poetry for tomorrow or the day after?
Well, a constant thing that's always on my mind, and 3 years later, kind of I've been here since I started kind of doing this, Brexit. I'm not really going to write a poem about Brexit.
Halloween this week coming, but It doesn't look as though we're going to get Brexit done.
No, well, ironically, the 50p coins have been stopped from the mint. They were printing these coins. 1,000 have been made. They're worth apparently £800 each if you've got one.
They've made They've made just 1,000 50p pieces. So there's £500 worth of 50p pieces.
Yeah,
and they're worth £800 each.
Yeah.
Wow.
So they stopped production. They did this before when the last time we were going to leave. The special commemorative coin, 31st of October, which is not going to happen now. And obviously there's. it's constantly changing, this story. I mean, every time I looked at last night, this morning, there's new things that are happening. But in a nutshell, obviously the MPs had rejected the timetable.
Yeah.
And obviously Boris now wants a general election, which will be the 12th of December, as part of getting them saying yes to this kind of deal. They've said, no, we want to scrutinise this deal. You can't just push this through. It's a big thing.
It's more time, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's now looking at the 31st of Jan.
Which year?
So the Lib Dems and the SNP are kind of joined forces and wrote a letter to Donald Tusk asking for an extension. They reckon that this will kind of break the deadlock of doing this. They want, but the EU are saying we're not going to give any more extensions because you're not giving us anything. Because every time they kind of agree on things, it doesn't happen. We're going around in circles. So it's a bit up in the air. Obviously, Labour still want leave without a deal off the table. Everyone's got their own kind of agenda in there, and no one can come to a consensus.
So from your point of view as a poet, are you tempted to just leave it alone? Because generally speaking, there's a lot of comment about, oh, for heaven's sake, either just get it done, or we go to another referendum, or we go to a general election, or ifs, and ifs.
Yeah.
Does that provide you with material, or do you, as a human being, shut down from it and think, I don't want to get into that?
Yeah, I just get getting. But I think a lot of people are getting fed up with it now, aren't they? Are getting fed up of hearing about it. If I wrote a poem about Brexit, it'd probably get hate.
Not really what you're after.
No. So it's just the ongoing story of when's it going to happen, and no one knows.
All right. So Brexit is in the papers. Give me another story.
This kind of the lorry driver charged in this Grays Essex. Terrible, horrible thing. There is actually talk that there was fears that a container was one of 3 in the convoy carrying 100.
Yes, I'd read about this. The possibility of 100 people who could have been being human trafficked in exactly the same way. I mean, the horrific thought in the back of my mind is, hang on, are there 2 more freezer truck trailers still to be discovered? That was a story which broke in the last 24 hours or so.
Yeah, I saw that in the newspaper this morning. But obviously the driver, Maurice Robinson, of 25 from Northern Ireland, is in court tomorrow.
Now, he's been charged with manslaughter, not murder. It was originally being discussed as murder, wasn't it?
And the thing with this is, people who are in these kind of countries that are earning £400 a month pay up to $30,000 to get on board these kind of vehicles, which obviously they're sealed containers. And this poor girl, this 26-year-old Vietnamese girl, sent her, the thing that got to me as a parent was she sent her mother a message saying, I'm dying because I can't breathe, I'm sorry, Mum. And she even left details of where they were going to so they could find the body. And I just thought, as a parent, that is the worst possible.
It is utterly heartbreaking. Thousands and thousands of miles away from home, where you thought you were going to go and get a whole new start to life. Your life has come to an end instead. And of course, the investigations now carry on. There have been arrests that are made, and of course, there are charges that are now being brought. So what we now know is into the papers. A lot that can be read about that. One more story. Let's have another one from you.
On a kind of positive note, England rugby. Obviously, if no one knows about that, England beat New Zealand 19-7. I'm not really a rugby fan, but obviously I followed it all over because it was all over Facebook. And England are into their first kind of Rugby World Cup final in 12 years after beating 3-time world champions New Zealand.
A lot of people thought that England were going to have a very difficult time of it. On the field, it didn't seem to be that way. As we speak, South Africa have just beaten Wales 19-16, so it's going to be an England-South Africa final for the William Webb Ellis Trophy. This is the sort of thing, I suppose, that has the potential to lift national hearts. If we've just been talking about the horrific and senseless loss of life in container lorries and the issues over Brexit, we want something positive, and this could well be it for not only England but Britain as well.
Well, the final will be on the 2nd of November. Before that, New Zealand will take on whoever lost today, but the England kind of final will be the 2nd of November. Incidentally, New Zealand have not lost a World Cup game in 12 years.
Well, they have now.
Yeah, but they've won 15 of the past 16 games, so that's got to be quite a blow.
And for England to have beaten New Zealand as they did, that's got to give a huge fillip. And I suppose from a parental point of view, now there's going to be a renewed interest. I mean, the Saints won yesterday. There's going to be a new renewed interest in perhaps getting youngsters, male and female, into the game on the back of the Rugby World Cup. That's got to be good news.
That's what I was just going to say. There's going to be a lot of children playing rugby now after that, which is good because it's sport. It's getting kids out there, getting them exercising, and it's good for everyone, really. So it's It's good news.
There is a temptation massively for me to say it's poetry in motion.
Yes. I haven't heard that before.
That's
no.
in a sense what it is. Is that territory for you? Is that something? Can you ride on the back of that with words for tomorrow or the day after?
It's
with the poetry
inspirational,
project?
Isn't it? It's, people have gone out there, they've fought for their country, and they've produced the results. Obviously, now we just need to go to the final and win the whole thing.
Which is the next thing we're all going to be gearing ourselves up with. James, always a pleasure. Lovely
You're
to have you
welcome.
in. Thanks very much indeed. Book 5 out. What's it called?
Everything I write is about you.
Everything I Write is About You. James McInerney. And you can find out more about James and his writing not only from the websites, but also online on Twitter too.
On FM.
Online.
DAB Digital Radio.
And Freeview Channel 734.
This is BBC Radio Northampton.
James, thanks very much indeed. Good luck with the poetry project. Come in and see us again soon.